Hello, my name is Jordan Martinez, and this is discussion one, my personal conflict metaphor. I will be discussing conflicts in the workplace. Conflicts in the workplace are very common. You always have two parties who agree to disagree. And sometimes it can be difficult because sometimes you're that middle person, or sometimes you're that other party who's disagreeing with the other party, and you're the cause of it all. So it can sometimes be very very difficult. I want to compare my example to the movie Hunger Games. I chose the movie Hunger Games because not only is it one of my favorite movies, there is just so much conflict in that movie that involves two or more parties. I can promise you at my workplace there is not a bunch of sword throwing or arrow shooting throughout the office, but there is a lot of conflict in the office, in the workplace. In Hunger Games, Katniss and Peeta are agreeing to disagree pretty much throughout the whole movie. And we know at the end of the movie, they both agree not to kill each other and serve as one to fight against the Capitol along with President Snow. Um, so my example, I work for Frost Bank. I work at the main headquarters in San Antonio, Texas. My position with Frost is an executive assistant. My personal experience of conflict in the workplace happened just this past March. So every year we have a statewide sales manager meeting where over 250 employees attend. All the executives attend, which is very rare. They're never all in one place at the same time. All the regional presidents, show up, and that rarely happens. So to have all these important figures in one setting, you just have everything has to go perfect. My coworker Jill and I are in charge of this entire event. We have to set up a time, a place, food catering, menu options, choose an event center, get all the materials needed for the presentation. So pad, pens, books, posters, etc. We also have to create the presentation that the executives will be presenting to the sales managers. So that's just a little list of everything that both Jill and I have to agree on in order for us to push this out and for it to work. So to say that we both agree on everything at the very beginning would be a lie. Jill and I work very closely together and have been for 2.5 years now. We learn to understand each other's work techniques and have discovered each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we have respect for that. If I have a weakness, Jill will cover that, and vice versa. We understand and respect each other, um, strengths and weaknesses, and we always help each other out. That's never a problem. Um, when we work on a project, that is this huge and so important to the bank, can add a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on anyone. As big of a project as it is, it's very stressful. So a month before the event, that was going to happen, Jill went on a 10-day vacation. So she was out of work for 2 weeks, which is a lot of time that me and her could have spent together to try and get this presentation out and ready on time. I had to continue working on the event planning myself while she was gone, and I made some decisions I thought she would agree on because I thought I knew Jill well enough to be like, oh yeah, Jill likes this. I'm gonna go ahead and take this because I think she would like it. I think we can both agree on it and we can move forward and move past it. Well, when she returns back to work, we quickly meet and discuss what she had missed for the 2 weeks that she was out, so we can both just be on the same page. Like I said, while she was out, I had to continue working and planning the event on my own. I created the presentation and I showed it to her, and she immediately stated everything that she would have done differently, which I respect her opinion. I want to know her opinion, and I want her constructive criticism if she has any, which she did in this case, because she said she would have done a whole lot differently than what I would have done. I said, okay, well, let's work together quickly to fix a presentation that suits both of our needs, because the presentation is probably the most important part of this whole planning. So we try and get the presentation out first if we can, because once we finalize it, we have to present it to our executive team to make sure that they love it. And if they don't love it, then we have to go back to the drawing board, which means more disagreeing and agreeing for me and Jill, which takes not a lot of time, but it's a waste of time when we could just agree on it. So next, she told me she would have picked a different meal selection for the event. I told her we can add or subtract items. That's no biggie. Let's move on. So very, very long story short, we finally agreed on everything on the checklist that we created. So if it was the food, check. Jill and Jordan love it. If it was the event center, check. Jill and Jordan love it. We have to make sure that we both agree on it because we're working together. So long story short, we finally agreed on everything and finalized the agreement with the event center, and the event went very smoothly. We were both very pleased and very happy. We still remain close co-workers because we work together every day and we see each other every day. But when we have big events to plan together, we still agree to disagree. At first, I feel like my example portrayed conflict in the workplace by Jill leaving for a vacation a month before the big event and left me to plan almost everything. And then she comes back to work putting down all my ideas and expect me to change everything just because, she didn't like it. I also feel like my example also portrayed perceived incompatible goals between Jill and I, because we always agree to disagree at first. And I feel like a lot of coworkers that work closely together might do that. But after sharing our differences and coming to a common understanding, that's when we agree on everything. But we don't always start out that way. We start out with completely different goals in mind, and at the end, we come together as one. So that was my first bullet point for the discussion. Next, I will be discussing which of the three conflict systems presented in Chapter 2 do I find myself in most often. So when I was growing up, when I was younger, I feel like I could have related to all three of these conflict systems. I grew up in a household that had conflict, verbal fights, verbal abuse, and they were all towards my mother. When I was little, maybe around the ages 5 through 8, and I say 5 through 8 because I feel like starting between 5, 6, I can start retaining information and remembering a lot of stuff. I felt like I was a lot in the avoidance system only because I would never express my struggles. As I got older and started to realize what was happening in our household, I still felt like I was in the avoidance stage because I loved going to school. I would go to school and I would pretend that nothing was bothering me, that nothing was happening at home, that I lived like this perfect life because I also didn't want people judging me, or I didn't want to feel embarrassed because my household was unstable and their household was stable. I just didn't want to bring that attention upon myself. So I would just always keep what was bothering me inside. But when I was older, in those teenage years, when I would get home from school, I was in an aggressive system. I would yell and I would have attitude towards my mother and my sisters. And I always felt anger almost the whole time I was home because I didn't want to be there because of the stuff that I was witnessing. And I just didn't want to be there and realize that I was in an unstable environment. I loved being at school where I had structure and it was stable for me there. I felt like going to school, I could avoid what was happening at home and focus more on school and sports at the time. So fast forward now that I'm 28 years old, I truly find myself in the collaborative system almost 24/7. At work, I'm constantly collaborating with my coworkers, and I love to deal with people face to face directly and give my openly opinion and vice versa. I like to help people. I don't have any kids, but I do have two nephews and one niece, and I'm very involved in their lives to ensure that they know that they always have someone to talk to if times are ever tough. When I was their age, I held a lot of stuff inside, and I can say it took me a long time to grow out of that stage. Being stuck in the avoidance system is lonely, and I can 100% say that being in the collaborative system is much more pleasant. So I do see myself in the collaborative system almost every day, if not 24/7. I'm always trying to better things and work together with people to try and find the best solution for myself or for whatever we're working on. Thank you.